Kuravath stood 10 feet tall, with distinctive pointed ears and skin that shifted through dark, muted colors, grays and deep browns that her people considered signs of genetic failure. Among the Silmari, beauty was measured by delicate features, graceful proportions, and vibrant skin colors. Kira was none of these things. She was massive, easily twice the height of typical females, with dense muscle and bone structure that made her physically powerful in ways her culture considered monstrous. Her skin rarely showed the bright, shifting colors that Silmari prized. The Silmari called her kind Talvrak, the malformed ones. A rare genetic variation producing individuals of enormous size and strength, but appearance so divergent from cultural beauty standards that they were treated as shameful aberrations. Kira spent her childhood hidden by her family. Her adolescence in specialized facilities where Talvrak were segregated from normal society. Her early adulthood learning that the best she could hope for was useful service in roles where her appearance didn't matter. Heavy labor, dangerous industrial work, positions where strength was valued but the person providing it remained invisible. She'd internalized what her culture taught her, that she was a monster wearing Silmari shape, that her size and strength made her fundamentally wrong, that she should be grateful for opportunities to be useful while remaining out of sight. Now, at 32, Kira worked in the Coalition Industrial Complex on the edge of Silmari space, massive construction requiring strength that made her monstrous size actually valuable. She worked night shifts when fewer people were around, kept to herself, spoke only when necessary, lived in single occupancy, housing away from communal areas. It was lonely, but loneliness was better than the revulsion she saw in others' eyes. Better to be alone than to be reminded constantly that you were the monster in everyone else's story. Dr. Marcus Hayes arrived as the new human safety coordinator, ensuring work practices didn't create hazards across diverse species. He was one of those humans who asked too many questions and seemed genuinely curious about everyone. Their first meeting happened during a night shift. Kira was moving massive structural beams, work requiring specialized equipment for most species, but that her Talvrak strength allowed her to handle directly. Marcus approached conducting safety inspection. Most coordinators checked remotely, but Marcus walked right up, observing her methods with attention that made Kira tense with familiar dread. She expected the usual reaction: subtle recoil, widened eyes, careful distance people maintained around Talvrak. Instead, Marcus watched several minutes, then said, "That's remarkable efficiency. The way you're distributing weight across multiple contact points while maintaining structural integrity, that's sophisticated engineering intuition, not just raw strength." Kira kept working, unsure how to respond. "I need to verify safety protocols," Marcus continued. "Is now a good time, or should I come back during your break?" It was such a normal question, treating her like a colleague whose time mattered, that Kira actually stopped to look at him. Marcus met her eyes without flinching. Just professional interest and what might be genuine friendliness. Over following weeks, Marcus became a regular presence, always with legitimate safety reasons, but also with questions about her methods, her insights, her observations. He treated her like an expert rather than a monster, like someone whose opinion mattered. Slowly, Kira started talking more, explaining her reasoning, offering suggestions, engaging in actual professional dialogue. One evening, reviewing stress calculations, Marcus said something that would change everything. "Watching you work is beautiful. The way you move, there's this grace to it. The precision, the control, the way you position yourself to optimize force distribution. It's like watching someone who's completely mastered their craft." Kira froze. Her skin flashed through colors: confusion, disbelief, struggling hope. "Beautiful?" The word felt foreign applied to herself. "I'm Talvrak. I'm 10 feet tall. I'm not beautiful. I'm useful maybe. Strong, but not beautiful." Marcus looked genuinely surprised. "Why can't you be both strong and beautiful? Your strength allows for incredible precision. Your height gives you perspective others miss. The way you work, the competence and grace despite operating in a facility not built for your size, that's beautiful." Kira didn't know what to do with Marcus's words. For 3 decades, she'd internalized that Talvrak were monsters, useful but fundamentally aberrant. Every message reinforced this: segregated facilities, isolation, the way people avoided looking at her. but Marcus kept saying things contradicting everything she'd learned. He mentioned that several coalition species consider height and strength attractive, that human aesthetics value competence regardless of size, that what Silmuri culture taught her to see as aberration, other cultures might see as impressive variation. Your experience is real, Marcus clarified. The isolation, the way your culture has treated you, that's real harm. But your culture's standards aren't universal truth. From my perspective as a human who doesn't share Silmuri beauty standards, you're striking, impressive, beautiful. Kira wanted to dismiss this. Certainty was safer than hope, but Marcus's perspective kept creating cracks in that certainty. He introduced her to other humans who responded with professional respect and genuine friendliness. Some expressed fascination with her capabilities, asking with interested curiosity rather than horror. A human structural engineer named Sarah actually requested Kira's consultation, valuing her perspective because of her size, not despite it. Slowly, Kira began considering that maybe Talvrak were only monstrous within Silmuri cultural perspective. It was terrifying, this hope. If she wasn't actually a monster, then she'd spent 32 years internalizing a lie. The transformation didn't happen dramatically. Healing from decades of being told you're monstrous doesn't work that way. But gradually, something fundamental shifted. Kira started attending communal meals occasionally. She spoke up during meetings, offering insights. She even experimented with clothing styles, discovering some human fashions worked well for her frame. Her skin, which had spent decades in muted grays and browns, began showing more varied colors, subtle shifting tones reflecting emotions she was learning to let herself feel. One day, 6 months after Marcus first called her beautiful, Kira caught her reflection and felt something new, not shame, but something approaching acceptance, maybe even appreciation. She saw her height as presence, her strength as mastered capability, her size as different, and different didn't have to mean less than. I wanted to thank you, Kira told Marcus. For what? For seeing me differently. For calling me beautiful when everything had taught me I was monstrous. You didn't change what I am. I'm still 10 feet tall, still Talvrak. But you changed what that means. You showed me that being Talvrak doesn't have to mean being wrong. Years later, Kira had become something unprecedented. A Talvrak who lived openly, who worked in visible positions of expertise, who challenged the assumption that being different means being less than. She'd helped establish support networks for other Talvrak, creating spaces where they could connect with non-Silmuri who saw their size as impressive variation rather than monstrous aberration. When reporters asked about the human who first called her beautiful, Kira gave her honest answer. Dr. Marcus Hayes saw me working and called me beautiful, not despite my size and strength, but because of how I used them. That simple act began unraveling decades of internalized belief that I was a monster. He didn't fix me because I wasn't broken. He offered a different perspective that let me question whether my culture's standards were the only valid measure of worth. Her skin showed steady, confident colors. I'm still Talvrak, still 10 feet tall, but I've learned those things make me different, not wrong. That beauty and monstrousness exist in the eye of the beholder, and I get to choose which perspective I believe. She looked directly at the camera, her full height visible, her presence commanding rather than apologetic. To other Talvrak watching, you are not monsters. Our size, our strength, our differences, these are variations, not aberrations. The culture that taught us to hide was limited, not us. Find people who see you as you actually are, and then do the hardest work, believe them. Believe that maybe 30 years of being told you're monstrous might have been wrong. Because you deserve to be seen, and you deserve to be seen as beautiful. Marcus, asked years later, responded, Kira was beautiful, she is beautiful. I saw someone with remarkable control and grace despite working in a facility designed for smaller beings. I just described what I honestly saw without the cultural bias that taught her people to see her as monstrous. What she did with that different perspective, questioning whether her culture's story was true, building networks for other Talvrak, transforming personal healing into community change, that courage is what's actually beautiful. Because Kira had learned that perception can imprison, that being told you're monstrous makes you hide, apologize for existing, and remain invisible. But compassion can free. One person seeing you differently creates the crack through which new understanding flows. She'd learned that beauty isn't about matching external standards, but about being seen as you actually are, with distinctive features valued rather than corrected. And most importantly, she'd learned that being different doesn't mean being less than. That her 10-foot height, her exceptional strength, her Talvrock nature, these weren't aberrations to overcome but variations to own. The monster in the mirror had never been real. It had been a reflection shaped by standards too narrow to contain the truth of her existence. And once Marcus offered a different mirror, one reflecting capability and genuine beauty, Kira found the courage to look again and see what had been there all along. Not a monster. Just someone powerful and unique, whose value had always existed but needed different eyes to be recognized. Someone who deserved to be seen, to be known, to be called beautiful, not as charity, but as simple, honest truth spoken by someone whose perspective wasn't limited by standards that never fit her in the first place. She stood now at her full 10 feet, no longer apologizing for the space she occupied, no longer hiding the strength that made her remarkable. And in that standing, proud, visible, known, she had become the living proof that what one culture calls monstrous, another might recognize as magnificent. The transformation was complete not because she'd changed what she was, but because she'd finally changed how she saw it. And in that seeing, she'd freed not just herself, but every other Talvrock who'd been taught to believe that different meant broken. She'd become the mirror they needed, reflecting back not monstrousness, but the beauty that had been there all along, waiting to be recognized.